This past week, snow began to fall on the shoulders of people struggling to get back up after Hurricane Sandy. 2 weeks after the storm, many thousands are still out of their homes, and thousands more have no power. A long stretch of the East Coast looks like it lost a war. One place still in the dark and the cold is the New York City neighborhood of Belle Harbor. It's a community of only a few thousand, but it has seen much more than its share of tragedy. A lot of its residents are cops and firemen, and many were lost on 9/11. Then, 2 months later in 2001, a jumbo jet crashed into the community. Now the storm has swept away a great deal of Belle Harbor, but it did not take away the grit of the people who always reach out for one another.
The story will continue in a moment.
This was the moment captured on a phone when many in Belle Harbor thought fate would finally take their town.
We were terrified when the fire started because we watched the houses on the next block go up one after another. And the fire department couldn't get here because the water was so high.
The water was 6 feet high at Susan Brady's porch when her son shot this video, the moment the neighborhood was squeezed into a narrow space between drowning and burning.
I mean, the water was breaking on the back deck. It was coming in through the basement windows, the garage. The kitchen window shattered in the height of the storm. And we were in a bad place.
The Bradys are an Irish-American family typical for Belle Harbor. Jimmy and Brian are New York City firefighters. Patrick is applying to join the fire department. The night of the storm, the Bradys did not evacuate, but Dennis was away on a trip to Florida.
I can't imagine anything worse than being 1,000 miles from here and have your wife on the phone telling you that the house is flooded and the fire's coming.
I couldn't wait to get in the car. I just couldn't.
What did you do?
I ran to the store and got everything I could, generators and water pumps. And I just told the guy, stuff the car with everything you got in this place and put it in there. And here's my credit card.
Maxed out the credit card?
I called American Express and I told them, do what you have to do, but this stuff is going on the card.
How long did it take you to drive here?
19, 20 hours. You know, I stopped for gas and just kept going.
Straight through?
Straight through.
And when you got here, what did you see?
Devastation. Total devastation.
Dennis maxed his card on more pumps, generators, and supplies than he could use because he knew someone would need them. It didn't matter who. The houses in his neighborhood have been in the same families for 3 and 4 generations.
Who lives here? What kind of neighborhood is it?
This is 3 F's. Family, friends, and faith. Everybody cares about each other.
I live in New York City. I don't have a key to my front door, and the door is never locked, and if it is, I couldn't get into it because I don't have a key.
This isn't the place people think of when they think of New York City.
Exactly.
Belle Harbor is down there, below Manhattan, in Queens, on a strip of sand called the Rockaway Peninsula. The Atlantic is to the south. Jamaica Bay, to the north, separates what they call the Rockaways from the island of Manhattan. After 1900, it was a beach resort, but over the years, it settled into what were neat rows of middle-class homes. The streets are piled high with sand now. The main drag has been knocked out of business. But a neighborhood is made of people, and here they take care of their own. During the storm, Mike McDonald sheltered in a house with his neighbors when the tidal surge began filling the street.
The windows blew in. You hear pop, 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 and all the water came rushing in. It came right up the stairwell. I said, I'm going to the front of the house to see how much tide is still going to rise. At that moment, a gas line blew, and there was embers of flames pouring over the house, equal to that of a snow globe. If you shake a snow globe and you see all the white come down, but this was raining fire.
When the house burst into flame, McDonald wanted to lead everyone through the tide to a house across the street. He's not the kind who gives up easily. He's had 60 surgeries for skin cancer. McDonald found that he didn't have a rope for the rescue, so he made one. Extension cords and twine and lamp cord, so the rope led from where to where?
The rope here went from the banister over to the tree here.
Right there where it's tied to the tree is how high the water was. McDonald showed us how a neighbor on a surfboard tied the other end across the street. McDonald used this lifeline as he carried 6 people, one at a time.
I tell you, first of all, we're being chased by fire, and then the alternative is to jump into raging water that looked like tsunami waters.
Not good options.
This whole thing was fueled by nothing more than hope and trust.
Why was this your job?
Because I promised them that nothing would happen to them. There's something great about this community. Everyone in this community, they're all first responders, they're firemen, they're police officers. Rockaway has a great fabric running through its, through everybody here where they don't mind putting their lives on the line if there's a possibility to save another.
As the fire approached the next block, Kenny Dean, who works for the bomb squad at the NYPD, and his wife Liz decided to make a break for it with their kids, using their own rope that Kenny tied loops in to hold their 12-year-old boy and girls 9 and 7.
Kenny stood here on the porch, and as the children came out, he said you put your wrist in the loop and you hold on. And then they had their swim kick board, and they went like this, and one by one they jumped straight off the porch into the water.
Brave kids.
Very.
You had hesitation, didn't you? You were
when I stepped off the porch, I just said, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening to myself. You protect us, God. And really my fear was losing one of the children, not being able to see them.
So jumping into the flood
Right.
seemed like the best option you had.
Right. With floating debris, pieces of boardwalk. The water was deep enough for one of my children to ask, Mommy, are there sharks in the water?
Sharks.
Sharks. And I said, no, of course. And off we, they quietly continued. They were very quiet.
Jim O'Connor could see the fire consuming his neighborhood.
My wife likened it to the Titanic meets Gone with the Wind when Atlanta was burning.
When flames hit this house across the street, he jumped in the water to help 3 women escape, holding a 3-month-old over his head. They all took refuge with a neighbor until dawn.
When the water went down and it was just getting day out, we came over here and we turned our corner not knowing if we had a house or not standing. And there it was still there.
But a lot of tragedy here.
Well, the only thing we haven't got now is the locusts and the frogs, I think, over here. That's about it. And my friends, let us pray.
After the plague of Sandy, Mass at St. Francis de Sales is said in the chill, lit by stained glass and candles, not unlike when the book of Exodus was written. No telling when the power is coming back. But the St. Francis gym has filled with coats and food and supplies sent to the Rockaway Peninsula from just about everywhere.
People from Rockaway, we live by the ocean and we respect it, but we don't fear it really. You know?
We sat down at St. Francis with fireman Sean Heron and James Brennan, childhood friends who'd seen their town survive before and didn't imagine losing it to the sea they love.
You know, I had my wife, my sister, and my sister-in-law with 4 young children, and it was by far the scariest night of my life. God forbid if I did have to get them all out of the house, you know, how I was going to do it. And luckily I didn't have to, so. But, you know, I think my brother was watching down on me, so.
Your brother was watching down on you. Tell me about your brother.
He got killed in 9/11, and, you know, he was a great kid, very well-liked, hard worker, just a great kid.
His brother was Charlie Heron, a bond trader at the World Trade Center. Belle Harbor lost 10 people that day, 5 of them firemen. And among those grieving was Charlie Heron's best friend, Chris Lawler, who, himself, had only 2 months to live. In November, an American Airlines jet got into trouble leaving Kennedy Airport and nosed straight into Belle Harbor. 260 were killed on the plane, 5, including Chris Lawler, died on the ground. The plane crash in 2001 happened just beyond that yellow house there on the very next block. And so here it is in the same neighborhood that more than a dozen houses burned down during Hurricane Sandy. And 3 people were killed here in Belle Harbor. 1 woman bled to death when she was cut by flying glass, and 2 men drowned in their basements. Those deaths would have been mourned here at the Harbor Light Pub, the place for first dates, wedding receptions, and Irish wakes. It was here 32 years, owned by a man who lost a son and now a business, Sean Heeran's dad. Your dad's restaurant is really the center of this community, it seems, for most people.
A lot of good times. I mean, those walls could talk, you know. Became a place where everybody could go, almost like a Cheers, you know.
Well, I'm in the restaurant business now, and my first job was as an 11-year-old busboy at the Harbor Light, which I got fired from, and then I got rehired as a dishwasher.
The homes they knew were ruined by the sea. The houses of Belle Harbor are turned inside out, the debris out front, same as the next house, and the next, and on down the street. Out where the kids play, the Navy landed engineers and equipment. When the military hits the beach, you know there's a lot of work to do.
For everybody, baby.
For a few, these are signs that it's time to go, at least for a while.
We'll get the O'Grady's in this one and the Murphys in this one.
We met 5 moms and 15 kids going to San Diego for the next few weeks, so the kids can get in school and dads left behind can fix the houses.
Love you, buddy.
James Brennan, who we met in the church, organized this trip. He turned his busboy experience into a chain of restaurants in California. After the storm, he came back, and now he's raising money to get debris cleaned out and get electricity and heat back in.
They're separate.
As for the Brady boys, they're helping out on the main drag to get the businesses open, and the rest of the time, they're tearing out what was lost in their own home.
Do you think of yourselves as victims of the hurricane?
No.
How could you not?
We're alive. We're here together.
And like, we're the lucky ones.
You're the lucky ones?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think most people walking around this neighborhood wouldn't think of you as being too lucky.
If you walk around a block, you'd say so. This house is completely burned to the ground, and our house is still standing. All we do is just got our basement.
You know, just things. And that's it. And that's the big thing, is that everybody is safe. You know, the neighborhood is still here. The people are still here.
Just things. The neighborhood is wrecked. It's freezing outside. Nobody's had heat in a week.
It brought us together. It brought countless other families together. It brought a neighborhood together. You know, people have flown in from all over the world, all over the country, that are from here, that have families here to help. And it's brought everybody, you know, back and, you know, and grounded again.
The people of Belle Harbor reminded us of what Churchill said: when going through hell, keep going. With every setback, that is what they've done, not pausing for help or waiting for instructions. They have seen the likes of this before, and they know the promise that lies beyond it. For information on how to help the families of Belle Harbor, as well as others affected by Hurricane Sandy, please go to 60minutes.com.